Okay, so as we are looking to today, we talked about our angle relationships already. Today what we are looking at is what if the lines are parallel and that transversal cuts through parallel lines, we actually have some angle relationships that we can come up with. So first off, when you look at this, what I've highlighted here are some of the key relationships. So first off, if each pair of corresponding angles, if you have those parallel lines, corresponding angles are congruent. If the lines are parallel, alternate interior angles are congruent. If we are looking at lines that are parallel, alternate exterior angles are congruent. The only ones that are not congruent are the consecutive interior angles. And so when you look at this, if I were to just draw a quick picture, I recognize this is not super accurate, but if I look at this, it makes sense because all I see here at all of these intersection points are either acute angles or obtuse angles. Let common sense take you a long ways because if you look and you have an acute angle here, let's call this angle 1, and we look down here at angle 2, those are both acute angles. If these lines are parallel, it doesn't make any sense for both of those acute angles to add up to be 180. That doesn't make any sense. Instead, those are congruent angles. So that would kind of be an idea of this first thing, congruent angles, because they are corresponding. If we look at angle 2 and angle 3, those are considered alternate interior angles. Again, those are going to be congruent. So here we've got angle 1 and angle 2. Here we have angle 2 and angle 3. Again, both of those are acute angles, so that makes sense. If we think about alternate exterior angles, if I look here at angle 4, angle 1 and angle 4, those are also going to be congruent. That again makes sense because they're both going to be acute angles. Now when we look at these, we also have vertical angles here, and now we have 3 and 4 are also congruent because of corresponding. All of those angles, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are all going to be congruent to one another. All of the angles that I haven't written down yet, we can go ahead and name these 5, 6, 7, and 8. All of those angles in red, those are going to be congruent to one another. However, if you look at the angles of having one of each, so a red and a black, in other words, consecutive interior angles, those are the supplementary that we're talking about. So the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 6 equals 180 degrees. Okay, same thing could be said of 7 and 3. Those two are going to be supplementary as well. Again, the key is, though, that these lines have to be parallel for any of those relationships to hold up. Okay, one of the things I haven't mentioned here is this little point at the very bottom. Don't forget the things we already know. All right, so if you look back to linear pairs, so for example, if I look at this line here, 4 and 8 are a linear pair. They're always going to be supplementary, no matter what. It doesn't matter if those lines are parallel or not. A linear pair always is supplementary. Same thing when we look at vertical angles. If I come back up here, like 5 and 6, those are always going to be congruent. It doesn't matter what the lines look like. As long as we have a vertical angle pair, those are going to be congruent. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some of the evens together, and then I'm going to have you do the odds on your own. Okay, so if I look at measured angle 6, I've got 142 degrees for angle 6. Okay, you do not have to go in any specific order going through A through G or angles 1 through 8. So if I look at this, angle 1 and 6, those are vertical angles. So we can say that those are going to be the same. So this is vertical with angle 1. Okay, so we know that those are going to be the same. Let me go ahead and label that. And then what I would recommend is I would recommend kind of taking this idea, what we did before, as far as this intersection, that intersection is going to be repeated. So right now we have 142 degrees in the upper left and in the lower right. And so when I come down here, we have 142 in the upper left and in the lower right. And here's the thing, I'm going to go ahead and fill these numbers in. Our reasoning for these, or when we look at the right-hand side of this table, this can vary. So for example, angle 1 and angle 3, those are corresponding angles. However, 3 and 6 are alternate interior angles. So it doesn't matter how you connect them. What matters is that you connect it to something you already know. So for this one, I can put alternate interior angle with 6. Okay, you can kind of say however you kind of do that symbol or those abbreviations however you want, but alternate interior with angle 6. 3 and 8, again, those are vertical, but I could also say that angle 8 is corresponding angles, and that is with angle 6, again. Okay, so we have a lot of different options on how we can give our reasoning for that, but those numbers are going to be the same no matter what. So when we look at angle 2, we have a linear pair with angle 1, so we can say linear, and we can say with angle 1, or we can say is linear with angle 4, or excuse me, angle 6. It doesn't matter, but this is going to be 180 minus 142, which is then going to give us 38. And all of these other angles are also going to be 38, all of those other acute angles. But again, our reasoning can vary. So we could say angle 4 is corresponding with angle 2. We could say 2 and 7, or 4 and 7 are vertical, so vertical with angle 4. And we could say angle 5 is vertical with angle 2. That's totally fine. But again, we have to make sure we connect it to something that we already know. Okay? So now moving forward, when you look at example number 4, this one's a little bit more complex because we have a lot of things going on in this. So what I'm going to do and what I would suggest is, first off, I'm going to highlight our parallel lines. The reason I'm going to highlight those is because I have to see these parallel lines at all times. So I can't cover up the right or the left side. I would have to cover up the top or the bottom. So let's go ahead and look at this. So I've got angle 7 is 38. What I would recommend, and I'm going to just do this, you can use your hand, you can use a piece of paper, you can use a Post-it. I'm just going to totally cross off this top part right now. Okay, I don't want to be confused by it right now. And now what I've done is I've made more of a simple looking picture that I can make my angle relationships. So 7 and 5 are vertical. So that's going to be 38. 7 and 15 are corresponding. So that's going to be 38. 13 is also going to be 38. And so now I have all of those. I can look at the angles around those intersections and understand that those are a linear pair. So I can do 180 minus that 38 to come up with all of those other missing angle measures, which all of those then will be 142 around those intersections. So this is going to be 142, 16 is going to be 142, 6 is going to be 142, and then 8 is going to be 142 as well. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up here, and you can either move the Post-it or move your hand or whatever it is you use to cover that up. And now I'm going to look at this other intersection. Okay, now somebody might say, well, how do I know any information from that intersection? And the answer is, you were given some of this information in your question. So if I look at angle 10 is 102. Again, what I'm going to do is ask for you to cover up the bottom. Okay, again, I need to see both parallel lines, so that's why I'm covering up the bottom and not the left side. And now I can do this similar idea, just with different numbers. So 10 and 2 are corresponding, 2 and 4 are vertical, 10 and 12 are vertical. All of those are going to be 102. So I can label those. This is going to be 102, 102, and then angle 12 is also 102. I also have linear pairs around those intersections. So angle 10 and 11, I would do 180 minus 102. That would give me 78. So all of those angles remaining around those intersections are 78. Okay? So again, cover up part of the picture that is going to confuse you, so that way you can focus on the things that matter. Okay, so then when I'm looking at the next one, I'm actually going to skip ahead, and I'm going to do example 6 with you. I'm going to have you do the odds and also number 4 for some homework. So when you look at this, this one is a little bit tricky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to label what I already know. So angle 2 is 41. Angle 5 is 94. Angle 10 is 109, and that's all they give us. Okay, so what I would recommend is I would recommend looking for vertical angles or linear pairs. Now remember, vertical angles are formed by intersecting lines. We don't have any intersecting lines that give us an X. So vertical angles, we look for those intersecting lines. The big key, and I'm going to say this a lot, so ingrain this in your brain. The big key is when you are looking for alternate interior angles, and I'm going to write this here, alternate interior angles. The thing you want to look for is a Z or an N, okay? Because within the corners of the Z or within the corners of the N are going to be alternate interior angles, all right? So I'm going to say that again here in just a minute. So right now what I have going on is I can look here and we see a straight line, and anytime we see that straight line, we know that we can do 180 minus the angle we're given to get the other angle. So 180 minus 94 is 86. Okay, train your brain to see those linear pairs. It's going to make things a lot easier. Okay, so look for those X's for vertical angles. Look for straight lines for linear pairs. The other key that I mentioned that I'm going to look at right now is that Z or N. Okay, so when I look at this, in the middle, I've got, and I don't know why that didn't go to a highlighter, it's fine. I've got parallel lines, and then I've got this line here. So I've got a Z coming through the middle of my picture. What that does is that tells me I have alternate interior angles. So I've got 41 here, I've got 41 there. So angle 9 is going to be 41 degrees. And then again, what I have going on the right-hand side is I've got a straight line, which tells me that these three angles, boom, 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 are going to equal 180 together. So to come up with angle 8, I'm going to do 180 minus 41 minus 109, and I'm running out of room a little bit. So 180 minus 109 minus 41. Those are going to give us that angle 8 to be 30 degrees. Okay, now if you notice, I'm going to erase some of this stuff just to kind of clean this up a little bit. If you notice, we are still missing some information. So again, I'm going to label what we know at this point. I'm going to do it in black so that way we can kind of set apart some of the stuff that we are going to find. So we have 41 there. We've got 94 here. We found that this was 86. We also found that angle 9 was 41. Angle 10 is 109. And we just found that angle 8 is 30. Okay? The other thing that you want to look for, and please get in the habit of like drawing on your picture with pencil, erasing things, is if I look at these parallel lines, I can take and go along this transversal, and if I go along that transversal, this 86 is in the upper right-hand corner, so is angle 1. If they're in the same location, they are corresponding, and since those lines are parallel, we can say that those are going to be equal. So again, I've got an 86 degrees here. If I look in that corner, I now have a straight line, and I can use this angle, and this angle, all three equal 180 together. So I'm going to just draw an arrow here. This is going to be 180 minus 86 minus 41. And when I do that, I get 53 for that angle 3. Again, I'm looking for that straight line. As soon as I see that straight line, I know I have that relationship of 180 degrees. Okay? The last thing here is when I look at this right side. So I'm going to do this in a different color yet again. I know I'm drawing all over this picture. So if I look at these parallel lines, here and here, I can look at this transversal now. Okay? If it helps, you can cover up the entire left side of your picture. If I look at that picture, I can look and see that this 109 is in the lower left hand of this corner, or this intersection here. Up here, the one in the lower left hand corner is angle 7, which tells us that that is going to be the same because they're corresponding. And then again, if this is 109, I have a straight line here, so angle 6 is going to be 180 minus 109, which gives us 71. So again, when you are looking at these, the intersecting lines that form an X, that will give you vertical angles. You've got alternate interior angles. So the thing you're looking for there are your Z or your N's. Okay? Always look for straight lines because that's going to give you either linear pairs or angles that add up to 180. That is going to help you tremendously get unstuck in certain situations. Okay? As always, ask questions. Your job tonight is to finish the other problems that we didn't do, so the odds, and then also example number 4. Okay, when you finish, just take a picture of it and email it to me. You do not have to fill anything out on Edpuzzle today. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions. Thanks so much.